I am going to out a manager of the matrix. Now, if you remember in my first episode, I defined what I meant by a manager, right? We have the agents of the matrix. Those are the individuals who are trying to keep you in the dark. Then you have the managers of the matrix, who are bigger organizations that are being controlled by the people who are really pulling the strings in our world. And then you have the mainframes, which are actually telling the managers what to do and controlling the managers. So the first manager of the matrix that I want to enlighten is the actual American government. The American government is set up. Let me not say set up. The American government has been molded into an organization to keep you in the dark, to force you to vote one way or the other so that the mainframes of the matrix can control the managers enough to get both sides to do what they want them to do. Moving on. The U.S. government, big manager of the matrix. Why? Because they are the most active and all-encompassing manager of the matrix, because they kind of control a large segment of our lives. What the government has made it easy to do is for the lobbyists and the mainframes to basically control everything by controlling both sides because of the bipartisan nature of our government. Like I said before, if we got rid of the bipartisan system, everybody instantly has an IQ bump of 30 points because now they got to think for themselves. But they allow they allow the mainframes to pay both sides so that they can get what they want. I'm going to show you a video that kind of explains what lobbyists do and how the lobbyists are an arm of the mainframes.
Take an idea that nobody supports, literally nobody, and it has about a 30% chance of becoming federal law. Now, take an incredibly popular idea, the most popular idea this country has ever seen, and there's also about a 30% chance of it becoming law. This means that the number of American voters for or against any idea has no impact on the likelihood that Congress will make it law. Put another way, and I'm just going to quote the Princeton study directly here, the preferences of the average American appear to have only a minuscule, near zero, statistically non-significant impact upon public policy. So if you've ever felt like your opinion doesn't matter and that the government doesn't really care what you think, well, you're right. But there's a catch. This flat line only accounts for the bottom 90% of income earners in America. Economic elites, business interests, people who can afford lobbyists, they get their own line. Look at how much closer their line is to the ideal. When they want something, the government is much more likely to do it. And when they don't, they have the power to completely block it from happening, no matter how much the rest of the country supports it. They get what they want, and guess who ends up paying for it? We pay for it with the most expensive healthcare in the world. We pay for it with a tax code that's a complete mess. We pay for it with internet that's slower and more expensive, with wasteful spending, a floundering education system, a catastrophic drug war, and 1 in 5 American children born into poverty. Almost every major issue we face as a nation can be traced back to this graph.
How does the two-party system endure? Well, it endures because our system of government has made it easy for it to endure. How? Well, by allowing those that control the levers to keep control of those levers and keep it for a long time. I'm going to play a George Carlin video that kind of illustrates some of that point.
But there's a reason. There's a reason for this. There's a reason education sucks, and it's the same reason that it will never, ever, ever be fixed. It's never going to get any better. Don't look for it. Be happy with what you got. Because the owners of this country don't want that. I'm talking about the real owners now. The big, the wealthy, the real owners, the big wealthy business interests that control things and make all the important decisions. Forget the politicians. They're irrelevant. The politicians are put there to give you the idea that you have freedom of choice. You don't. You have no choice. You have owners. They own you. They own everything. They own all the important land. They own and control the corporations. They've long since bought and paid for the Senate, the Congress, the state houses, the city halls. They got the judges in their back pockets, and they own all the big all the big media companies. So they control just about all of the news and information you get to hear. They got you by the balls. They spend billions of dollars every year lobbying to get what they want. Well, we know what they want. They want more for themselves and less for everybody else. But I'll tell you what they don't want. They don't want a population of citizens capable of critical thinking. They don't want well-informed, well-educated people capable of critical thinking. They're not interested in that. That doesn't help them. That's against their interest. That's right. You know something? They don't want people who are smart enough to sit around the kitchen table and figure out how badly they're getting fucked by a system that threw them overboard 30 fucking years ago. They don't want that. You know what they want? They want obedient workers. Obedient workers. People who are just smart enough to run the machines and do the paperwork and just dumb enough to passively accept all these increasingly shittier jobs with the lower pay, the longer hours, the reduced benefits, the end of overtime, and the vanishing pension that disappears the minute you go to collect it. And now they're coming for your Social Security money. They want your fucking retirement money. They want it back, so they can give it to their criminal friends on Wall Street. And you know something? They'll get it. They'll get it all from you sooner or later, because they own this fucking place. It's a big club, and you ain't in it. You and I are not in the big club. And by the way, it's the same big club they used to beat you over the head with all day long when they tell you what to believe. All day long, beating you over the head in their media, telling you what to believe, what to think, and what to buy. The table is tilted, folks. The game is rigged. And nobody seems to notice. Nobody seems to care. Good, honest, hard-working people, white collar, blue collar, doesn't matter what color shirt you have on. Good, honest, hard-working people continue. These are people of modest means. Continue to elect these rich cocksuckers who don't give a fuck about them. They don't give a fuck about you. They don't give a fuck about you. They don't care about you at all. At all. At all. Yeah. You know?
George Carlin was a great political satirist, a great thinker. A lot of times comedians don't get credit for being thinkers, but they are. I think Chris Rock is in the vein of George Carlin. People who can actually put real world problems and issues into comedy and make it funny. Those people are super talented. Anyway, how is it possible, and this is a way that illustrates to you that the government, our system of government, is a manager of the mainframe. Because every person in America who's not a politician will agree that we need term limits. But guess what? It will never happen. Why? Because the guys who decide on how long someone can, or how many times someone can run, are the people who are actually holding those offices. And at that point, they become conservatives because they want to keep what they have, right? And the conservatives, the way I've defined it, not the conservatives the way the conservatives define it, because that's a bunch of BS, or the liberals define it. So at that point, all politicians become conservatives because they want to keep what they have, so they will never vote for term limits.